Hey, what's up, Sugar Bushes? Welcome to another episode of Crime and Cosmetics. Again, I'm so bad at putting these out on time. I'm so sorry. I need to go, see a doctor and get some, antidepressants or something, because I've just felt like not doing anything ever. But you don't deserve me being lazy and dealing with my own problems, and I need to get you guys some content put out, especially if I want to do this, as a full-time thing. Today we're going to be talking about Lizzie Borden. Lizzie Borden's case is not really anything super crazy compared to some of the stuff we've done here. And it's a relatively easy case that we're probably going to fly through, so I'm just going to do a black and red look for this case, just because a simple black and red is something I can fly through while I go through this case, because like I mentioned, it's not anything super insane. I mean, most of you are familiar with this case anyways. And then afterwards, I got to do some promo stuff. And next week, I'm going to be visiting my parents. So I'm going to try to get a case out, but I don't know. I have to get an external hard drive for my laptop, because when I go to my parents' house, I have to do everything from my laptop. I can't do it on my actual computer. I'm going to have to get an external hard drive for that, because we are out of room here. But anyways, let's just get started. Let me put on some eyeshadow primer and let's power through this case here. So for this case, we have to take ourselves to Falls River, Massachusetts. That's definitely not a Massachusetts accent, but it's kind of one of the only ones I can do, so we're just going to roll with it. So we are taking a look at the Borden family. So the Borden family are comprised of Andrew Borden, Lizzie Borden, Emma Borden, and their housekeeper, Bridget, who for some reason they call her Maggie. I don't know why. Maybe that was like the name of their first housekeeper and they're just keeping up tradition because that's what rich people do. Now, if you saw the Borden family just out and about, you were in their home or something, you wouldn't suspect them to be very wealthy people, but in reality they were. Their dad was a president of a bank. He also had some other very promising business ventures that netted him a lot of money. Their entire estate at the time was worth about $300,000, and in today's money that would be probably around $9 million. Their house, for instance, but Andrew Borden was known as being a very frugal man. Their house did not even have plumbing or electricity, which was very common for wealthy people to have at the time. This took place in the 1800s, and in their community there was a portion called the Hill, and that's where all the wealthy people lived. They lived on top of the hill, and Lizzie and Emma kind of thought that their dad was going to, they were going to move to the hill, because he definitely 110% had the money to move up there, but he was a frugal man. Some would consider him cheap, despite all the money he had. So they stayed in a very modest section of the community. Like I said, their house didn't even have running water or electricity, which was something that people with money had at the time. So after the death of Emma and Lizzie's mother, their dad remarried to a woman named Abbey. Now, Emma and Abbey kind of got, they got along as much as a kid and a step-parent could, but Lizzie and Abbey fucking hated each other. Well, more so, Lizzie hated Abbey because she believed that Abbey was after her father's money, and, Lizzie felt like she was entitled to that money. But they did not get along at all, and it was common knowledge that they didn't get along. It was not any big family secret. Lizzie and Emma were also known as two very avid church-going individuals that, they frequently attended the Christian church in their town. I think Lizzie even taught Sunday school for a little bit. They were very well known in that community, and they were known as just these, very nice individuals and very lovely church-going people. But don't we know it? It's always the people you less suspect. It's always the lovely church-going people. A little dark side of Lizzie, though, is that she had a problem with stealing. She loved to steal. She was a klepto through and through, let me tell you, sister. She would often just go into businesses and take things, but due to who her father was and how, powerful he was, nobody really said anything to her. All they would do, they kind of had this agreement where they would just write down what she stole and bill her father for it, and her father would just pay for it, kind of like what Target does. But Target doesn't bill your father. Basically, if you don't know this, here's a little tidbit of knowledge. If you're gonna go steal things, don't steal from Target. You know that old saying, if it's chain, it's free reign. Well, Target's an exclusion to that, because what Target will do is Target will keep tabs on you, and they'll watch you when you come in. They'll make sure, you know, they know who you are. They'll inform other Targets in the area about you, and they'll let you come in, and they will let you steal as much as you want. You can steal anything you want, and you won't get caught the first couple times. No, you won't. They will be like, okay, we'll just keep watching them, and they will let you come in and steal and steal and steal until you have racked up a certain amount of debt with them. Enough to where they can charge you federally instead of just a quick little misdemeanor. So that's what Target does. They make sure you have stolen enough until they record your face, and they record every instance of you coming in and stealing, and basically until they can charge you with the felony, and then that's when they grab you and then they press charges. So if you're gonna steal from somewhere, don't steal from Target. Love you. Anyways, back to the story. So Lizzie had this problem with stealing, and they would just, you know, bill her father. They knew he could pay for it, and that's what she did. And so tensions in the house had been kind of rising for quite some time. You know, Lizzie had, you know, she had made this chicken coop, this coop where she would regularly feed pigeons and stuff like that, and then her father went out and killed all of them because he said that it was attracting neighborhood kids hunting them. And that caused a huge fight between them, and her father actually sent her on a vacation after that, kind of just to get her to calm down. So I can't find the tool that I was using to help with my wings, so we just freehanded it. It looks okay, but like I said, Lizzie, as Lizzie's coming back from this vacation her father sent her on, she stays in a hotel. She stays for a couple days, and then finally she's like, okay, you know, I'm gonna go back home. Well, that, you know, things did not get better. So tensions finally simmered over the pot whenever Lizzie's father, Andrew, had given their stepdaughter, Abby's daughter, a piece of property. And that pissed Lizzie and her sister Emma off. So they demanded, you know, that their father give them some property. In which ultimately he gave into, and he sold them a piece of property, which was actually the house that they had grew up in with their mother who had passed away. He ended up selling it to them for $1 whole, in which they turned around and sold it right back to him for $5 grand, which would be about $142,000 in today's money. A couple days later, the brother of Lizzie and Emma's deceased mother comes, and he stays in their guest room because he wants to talk to Andrew about some business. While he's staying, the entire family comes incredibly ill, like violently ill, and they have no clue why, but slowly they get over this illness and things start seemingly going back to normal. Now, one thing I did forget to mention, a few months prior to when these murders actually took place, someone had apparently broken into the Borden home, stole around $50 along with some of Abby's jewelry. Nothing else was taken, nothing else was disturbed, nobody was hurt or anything like that, and the person who broke in seemed to kind of know that they were not home at the time. Now, a couple days later after this had happened, and an investigation had been launched, but Andrew calls the police station and asks them to call off the investigation, which was seen as very, you know, very odd, because, you know, someone breaks into your home and steals some shit. You would probably want, especially back then, you would probably want them to be investigated, you know, looked for and caught. But Andrew did not want the investigation to continue, which people thought that was very weird. They thought, you know, maybe it could have been Lizzie who broke in and took some of Abby's jewelry as well as some money, but that was never confirmed or anything like that. After that had happened, though, Andrew started wearing a key to the room, to the house basically, around his neck and into their bedroom. Kind of like a symbol that, like, I know you did it, and, you know, I'm watching you now. And in Lizzie's room, she also had an adjoining door that led into her parents' bedroom, which had been, it was seen as, like, not cool at the times to have access to your parents' bedroom, something like that, I don't know. Just pretty suspect of Lizzie there, because she was a kleptomaniac. So on August 4th, the family comes down to have dinner. It's Andrew, Abbey, Lizzie's uncle, their housemaid Bridget, and that's it. Which is honestly a little weird because it was common practice that Lizzie and Emma never ate breakfast with their family. But anywho, they get done eating. Andrew and Morse is the uncle, they go into the sitting room, talk about business for a little bit, and then Morse says he has to go visit some family. He then leaves, and Andrew goes on his morning walk. Now, Abbey goes upstairs and she begins tidying up the guest bedroom, which was one of Abbey and Lizzie's chores, but for some reason she was doing it. While she is tidying up the guest bedroom, she is struck on the side of the head with a hatchet. It looked as if she was turning to see who was behind her when she was struck, and she falls face down onto the floor. Then she is struck 17 more times in the head, in the back of the head with said hatchet, and ends up dying. So Andrew then returns home not too long after and goes to open the door and realizes that he can't get in. His key's not working. The door seems to be somewhat bolted shut. So he begins shouting for someone to let him in. That's when Maggie, Bridget, they call her Maggie again, don't know why. That's when Bridget, their landlady, goes in and tries to open the door but realizes she can't. She's like, fuck. And she said an explicit curse word, don't know what it was, but she said after she said that, she heard Lizzie laughing from atop the stairs. And then she goes and she lets Mr. Borden in from a different door in the house. Afterwards, Lizzie goes and talks with her father. Her father asks where Abbey was, and Lizzie states that she had received a message, a letter from a messenger stating that one of her friends had fallen very ill, and so she went to go probably see her friend. So Andrew doesn't think anything of this. He's just like, okay, yeah, cool, whatever. So he goes and he takes a nap on the couch. Now, after this, Lizzie goes to their maid Bridget and says, oh, I saw a sale going on at the store downtown. If you want to go, you can, and buy some things. Bridget had been feeling really ill because it was a very hot day and she had just got done cleaning the windows. So she says, you know, okay, cool, but I'm going to go lay down because I don't feel good. So she goes upstairs, she goes and lays down. Or she goes to her room and lays down. She says not long after she is then awoken by the sound of Lizzie screaming, Maggie, come quick, father's dead. Bridget goes downstairs, sees Andrew's body on the couch, and he's covered in blood, still bleeding. She runs upstairs, goes across the street to their family doctor who lives conveniently across the street. Doctor comes over and is like, yeah, that dude's dead. So police are called, they come out there, they're like, all right, you know what we need to do? Find the local immigrant in this town, put him in jail, you know, because racism. So they do that, and they go round up a local immigrant man from the town, they throw him in jail, and then they realize, oh wait, this guy was not anywhere near the crime scene at the time. So they let him go. So when police are asking Lizzie questions, she basically says, yeah, he came home and then I helped him. I removed his his boots for him and put him in slippers, and he went to go take a nap. Well, in the crime scene photos, Andrew is clearly seen still wearing his boots. So that doesn't make any sense. A lot of her questions, the answers she had for questions were very contradictory to the crime scene and different people's accounts, as well as, you know, the police that were investigating her said, you know, she seemed very calm, very poised for what she had just witnessed. So during the investigation, they're like, oh, you know, where is Abbey? And Lizzie then says, oh, I think I heard her come in. Maybe she's upstairs. Can one of you go check? So Bridget, along with a local neighbor, walks up the stairs, and before they even get to the top of the stairs, you can see into the guest room, and they see the feet of Abbey laying on the floor, and they're like, oh fuck, she's dead too. So they run downstairs, get the police, and like I said prior, when Bridget had first tried to open the door, she heard Lizzie laughing from upstairs. If you go up to the second floor, you see, before you even get to the top, you see directly into the guest room. So Lizzie would have known that Abby's body was there if she was up on the second story. And like I said, Lizzie told this story about how she had gotten a note from somebody and that one of her friends was sick, so she had went to go see her sick friend, but when she was asked where the note was, she couldn't produce it. She had no idea. They even put a page out in the paper that said, hey, if you wrote or sent this note, please come forward, we need to ask you questions, and of course no one responded. So while searching the property, police found 2 hatchets, an axe, and a hatchet that had just like an axe head of a hatchet that had a broken handle. They had noticed that the axe head had been covered with dirt and ash, like intentionally to make it look like it hadn't been moved. Lizzie's story changed multiple times. You know, at first she said she was out in the barn. At first she said she didn't hear anything. At first she said she heard like a grunt or something, I don't know, or something of the sorts. And, you know, the police went to the barn to see if she was where she said she was, and there were no footprints they could tell in the top portion of the barn where she claimed to be. Due to the family being deathly ill a couple weeks before the murders, the coroner had taken the contents of Abbey and Andrew's stomach and tested it for poison, but it came back negative. There was also a resident who made a statement saying they had witnessed Lizzie attempt to buy hydrocyanic acid at the drugstore, but was denied. And, you know, when she was questioned on that, she said it was to clean her furs, despite it not having any antiseptic properties or anything in that nature. So following the murders, the police were staked out at the police were staked out at Lizzie and Emma's residence. A friend of Lizzie and Emma's, Alice Russell, came and stayed with them during the night, though one of the police officers said that he did witness Alice and Lizzie in the basement. They couldn't see what they're doing, but he knew that they had kerosene lamps and a large wash tub. And they were hunched over the sink, and it looked like they were watching something, but he couldn't see what it was. He stated both women, after some time, exited the cellar, and that was that. So, you know, this is big news in the small town. Nothing like this had ever happened. And a lot of people were on Lizzie's side. They believed her to be innocent. They didn't think she was capable of doing such things. But it was still all over. It was all over the news. Everyone was talking about it. I believe that Lizzie and Emma's uncle went to go get something from the store and had to be escorted back by police because people just mobbed him to ask him questions. Later in the evening, though, the mayor and I believe the chief of police return to the Borden residence, and they basically tell Lizzie, like, hey, you're a suspect now. Like, we think you might have done this. So after the police come over to Lizzie's house and they tell her, hey, champ, you look a little sus right now. The next day, Russell walks into the kitchen and she sees Lizzie is tearing up a dress. And when Russell asks, or Alice asks, why she's tearing up this beautiful dress, because this was, you know, back in the 1800s, you had, like, you didn't have a change of clothes every day. You had, like, 3 dresses. You had, like, a daily wear, a fancy dress, and a night dress. And she was like, oh, I got paint on it, and I'm gonna have to burn it because it's stained with paint, and I can't get the stains out. And Lizzie and Alice is like, okay, that's a little suspect, but, you know, whatever, do you, boo? So at an inquest hearing a couple days later, Lizzie Borden is taken in to answer questions involving the case. She requests to have their family's lawyer there, which is denied because the inquest hearing has to be, I guess, secretive, or, you know, on a need-to-know basis. And, well, they're like, she was like, oh, well, I'm very nervous about all this, you know, what I need something to calm my nerves. So instead of the police being like, here's some beautiful, delicious chamomile tea, they're like, here's some morphine. So they give her a bunch of morphine to calm her down, and it makes her testimony insanely suspect. You know, she's contradicting herself, she can hardly speak, she's being very erratic. Didn't help that the DA in this situation was being very confrontational with her, which put her on edge even more, and the whole inquest hearing did not help Miss Borden's case. After the inquest hearing happened, though, those details were released to the public, and everyone all of a sudden flipped on their decision if Lizzie was capable of this. The whole town was convinced she did it. So on August 11th, Borden was served with a warrant of arrest, and she was jailed in lieu of the upcoming trial. On the day of the trial, Lizzie Borden's defense team comes in, and they are fucking stacked. This is a hardcore defense team, and it's 2 very well-renowned lawyers, as well as a lawyer who is also a former governor of Massachusetts. So one thing that did happen in this case that had actually never been done was that Lizzie's parents, Andrew and Abbey, their bodies were exhumed And basically what the coroner and the police were trying to do is they were going to look, basically what they did is they boiled the skin off of them, and they were going to see if the wounds on their face matched the hatchet that they had found in the basement. But unfortunately, their faces were too pulverized to get any kind of information out of that. They were just, the wounds were just too gaping because of how many times whoever had done it had hit them. But nonetheless, their skulls were brought into the courtroom and used as evidence. Now, when Lizzie saw this, she fainted. Immediately just faints. And people thought that was a little weird because they thought she was faking it because I didn't like the way that turned out. We're going to have to try that again. They thought that she was faking it because, you know, when she found her dad, who was actively bleeding on the couch, you couldn't recognize his face because of how bad he'd been hit. She didn't faint at all. She was very calm about the entire situation, but as soon as they bring her skull into the courtroom, she's and just falls over. And one thing that really helped Lizzie was that she had tons of people come in and be character witnesses, because like I said, she was a very prominent figure in the church community. She was a very church-going girl. She led youth groups every now and then, you know. So she was seen as a good Christian gal. No way a good Christian gal could do this, but still, a lot of members of the community did think she was innocent. But the character witnesses, along with her insanely stacked lawyer team, is what ultimately helped her out big time in this case. So, and the whole time, her sister maintains Lizzie's innocence. She doesn't think that Lizzie did it. Their housekeeper gives multiple statements on Lizzie's behalf. And so ultimately what happens is the jury goes to deliberate, and it only takes them an hour and a half until they come back and they find Lizzie Borden not guilty on the murder of Andrew Borden and Abbey Borden. Now, what's even crazier is, sorry, I know you guys don't know this because I edit this out, but I spent quite some time doing this design work. It's hard for me to talk and do it at the same time so I can get it right, but what's crazy is that it was ruled that Abbey was killed, or Abbey had died before Andrew did. So the way that works is all of Abbey's assets went to Andrew, and then Andrew died, and all of Abbey's assets as well as Andrew's assets went to Lizzie and Emma. So like I said, the whole town pretty much, you know, knows that Lizzie did this. You know, I can't, again, she was acquitted, so technically, you know, it was proof she didn't, but a lot of these signs, it's hard to ignore. You know, it's hard to not think that she did, from changing her story constantly, nothing, her saying making sense, her burning a dress that apparently got stained with paint. It's all just very suspect. But, you know, so she inherited, her and her sister inherited the whole family's estate. And whenever she was walking out of court, reporters asked her, you know, how do you feel? And she says, oh, I'm the happiest woman in the world. Because she was acquitted of murder, and she was about to be a very wealthy woman. So, like I said, she was basically a black sheep in the entire town now. Like, nobody really wanted anything to do with her or her sister because of what, you know, the case that surrounded them. But for some reason, they didn't leave. They got a house on the hill where all the other wealthy people lived. Her and her sister lived together until apparently Lizzie was throwing a party for a known actress, and her sister got into such a big fight that her sister was like, I don't ever want to see you again, and Emma left. But Emma still maintained Lizzie's innocence even after that fight. Now, there are tons of speculation on what happened. There's a lot of he said, she said stuff. You know, most people believe that Lizzie was the one that killed her father and her stepmother. Some people have speculated that Lizzie and their housekeeper were in a lesbian relationship, and Abbey caught them, so they had to kill Abbey. And then when they told their father reacted the same way, so Lizzie had to kill her father. You know, that was never really known. After the incident, Bridget ended up moving away and getting married to a man, and then She did confess that on her deathbed she changed her testimony to protect Lizzie. Some people suspected John Morse, Lizzie and Emma's uncle, and because he was considered a suspect for quite some time, but ultimately ruled out that it wasn't him. There's even some crazy story about a gentleman named William Borden who was suspected to be Andrew's illegitimate child who had mental health problems, and that he went to go extort money out of Andrew, and Andrew didn't budge, and he got into a rage and killed them. It was proven, though, that William Borden was not Andrew's child, though. Like I said, after her and her sister moved into the house on the hill, they got into that fight. They relatively stayed out of the news, and except for one instance of Lizzie being caught, accused of shoplifting in Providence, Rhode Island. Don't understand why you have all this money and you need to shoplift, something I never understood, but whatever. Lizzie died of pneumonia on June 1st, 1927 in Fall River, and then 9 days later her sister Emma ended up passing away at the age of 76, and they were buried side by side on a family plot. So after her death, Lizzie was worth around $250,000, and that's probably around $4.9 million of today's money. She left, majority of her inheritance was left to an animal shelter. She left about $30,000 to the Fall River Animal Rescue League, which equates to about $593,000, and then she left another allotted amount to friends and family. Some received payments of $5,000, some received payments of $1,000. There's also about $500 which equates to about 10 grand of today's money. Was left for the perpetual upkeep of her father's grave. There is a nursery rhyme too, that was written about this, and it goes, Lizzie Borden took her axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41, even though, Abbey was struck 17 times and Andrew was struck 10. There's also a second verse to that that's not very well known either that goes, Andrew Borden now is dead, Lizzie hit them in the head. Up in heaven he will sing, on the gallows she will swing. That is the story of Lizzie Borden and the murders of Andrew Borden and Abbey Borden. Like I said, if you ask me, I think she did it. Honestly, there is, all the evidence points to her. And this was definitely a different time where it was women aren't capable of that. Good Christian women aren't capable of killing. But Lizzie had problems with her stepmother, and had problems with her father, being frugal. She thought he was very cheap. She wanted his money so she could spend it how she wanted to, and he wasn't the kind of person to dish out the monies. I think this look turned out okay. I want to get so much better at this design work, so if you have any suggestions, let your boy know. Now's the time for the part of our show where we pick next week's murder, but first, let me do some promo stuff real quick. So I'm doing some videos for the Coldest Water bottle. Honestly, I really don't like endorsing things I don't think are good products, but I'm going to be real with you here. This is a good fucking water bottle. So when I first got this, I put wanted to see how long cold water and ice would last. So I filled it up with ice, filled it up with water, and there was ice in it 3 or 4 days later, and it still remained cold, and that was and it's still fairly cold. I wouldn't consider that room temperature, and there's this water has been in here for 6 days or so. Definitely do recommend. You can use promo code SNAXTON on thecoldestwater.com to get 10% off your purchase of one of these, and I like to be transparent with you. I do get a commission off that, so just letting you know. Second, we're going to be shouting out Dab Hand Collective, who sent me this super cool mask that says emo trash, because I'm emo trash until the day I die. They also sent me some very cool stickers. This is the Anti-Ooh-Woo Club, and this one is a Ouija board. You can use code SNAX to get a nice little discount on any purchase from them. You can check them out on Facebook at Dab Hand Collective. You can find their shop there. They make some really, really cool alternative stuff. Now, sorry about that, let's move on to where we pick our murders for next week out of the murder jar. Alright, ooh, look at all the murderers in there and that true crime. Let's see. Where are we going with now? Who do we got? Who do we got going? Ooh. Charles Manson. Huh. That's quite the profile case. So I guess we're going to be doing Charles Manson next week. So hope to see you there. I'm actually going to be visiting my family next weekend because I missed the hell out of them. I miss my nephew. I miss my mama. I'm going to try to get a video out when I'm visiting my family. It's just I got to get an external hard drive for my laptop because it's full now. It's because I won't be near my computer, and I usually do editing on my computer now. But hopefully we can get one out next week. If not, I'll put out some kind of video, some kind of content. But thank you so much for stopping by for another episode of Crime and Cosmetics. If you have a crime, a serial killer, cult, anything like that you want covered, please leave it down in the comment section of this video. If you have any ideas for any makeup looks, leave it down in the comments as well. Feedback is greatly appreciated. If you would like to, you can follow me on all my other social medias. I will leave that link down in the description of this video. I do stream on Twitch now pretty regularly, so I would love for you to come by and hang out there and talk to me. You can join our Coven. It is our Discord server. I will leave the link to that in the description of this video as well. I do have a podcast out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts, you'll find it. It would be greatly appreciated if you could listen to that, rate and subscribe it so I can get it in front of more viewers and give me some feedback. I would love to hear it. Also, I was thinking about doing a mukbang for the next video or the one after that, call it like mukbang and murder or something like that. If you guys would like to see that, please let me know. If you have any food suggestions, leave them down in the comments. I also have a P.O Box where you can send fan mail or anything of the sorts, and I would love to get mail from you, and I will read it on a YouTube video, as you can probably see in my video playlist. But I would love to hear from you. I'm going to make a scrapbook of all the letters I get from you guys. You mean the absolute world to me. But thank you so much for stopping by for another episode of Crime and Cosmetics. I have some good projects coming up, and I can't wait for you to be a part of them. I love you so much. I value your support, and I value you. You are loved, and you are valued. As always, I hope you have the best day ever, and all the good things happen to you. Please be kind to others, but most of all, be kind to yourself. And if you are struggling, if you just are not feeling yourself, please, please, please reach out to somebody, because you are loved, you are precious, and you are so valuable. I will see you next week, you guys. Have the best day ever. Love you so much. Bye-bye.